Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and boy oh boy, I thought the situation was gonna end with some actual positivity. But ladies and gentlemen, a couple days ago I made a video regarding Unity, the game engine, and I'm proud to just say again that they have continued to dig their own grave, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I've never seen a company basically end themselves this hard, but to understand, Unity finally actually did a response, and I want to read it with you guys, okay? Also, I wanted to bring up some new shady stuff that's come out since that last video. It's been out for a little bit, but we'll get right into it. Unity says, "We want to acknowledge the confusion and frustration we heard after we announced our new runtime policy." Now, for those of you who don't know what the runtime policy is, Unity is a middleware game engine, right? So when you're playing a video game, it's usually powered by a game engine, and Unity is a very popular game engine, as is Unreal Engine, as is a bunch of other middleware stuff. So Godot is a free open source engine, which I highly recommend because you can never trust Unity after what they did on September 12th. So you might as well cut them out of your entire life forever, okay? If you're a game developer, an indie game developer, start using Godot, switch to Unreal, do something else. Whatever you do, don't go to the trash that is Unity. But again, lots of game developers, some of them even have their own proprietary engines, okay? For instance, Cyberpunk 2077 runs on CD Projekt Red's in-house Red engine. Yeah, this game looks good, but to develop your own engine is a very daunting task, and that's why a lot of budding game developers tend to go with Unity because the work is kind of done there. Now, the way that the pricing has always been done is if you make a certain amount of game sales, you pay a percentage of your licensing fee, pretty standard. What Unity was trying to do is basically charge developers on a per install basis of the fucking game. So you gotta understand, it's kind of like if Mr. Beast made a super viral YouTube video and he used Adobe Premiere, and then tomorrow Adobe's like, "Hey, can you give us a percentage of your YouTube ad revenue?" Why? Because I used the tool to make my video? I already paid you licensing fees. Unity wanted extra. They wanted to basically be paid on a per install, per runtime basis of their game. Really, really shady shit. So anyways, Unity decided to address the confusion. Who is impacted by the price increase? The price increase is very targeted. In fact, more than 90% of our customers will not be affected by this change. Their customers are the game developers, not you, because, you know, the customers who go to Unity to get the engine to design the game to sell to you go to these guys. Customers who will be impacted are generally those who have found a substantial scale in download and revenue and have reached both their install and revenue thresholds. This means a low or no fee for creators who have not found scale success yet, and a modest one-time fee for those who have. Again, unethically asking for money that isn't yours is not what I consider right. But ladies and gentlemen, the game developers have responded. In their entire letter, they actually said, "We want to turn off Iron Source and Unity ads monetization until their new conditions are reviewed." Yeah, developers who are affected by this want to turn off the Unity ad so Unity loses some of that money. And they want to turn off Iron Source, which is an actual acquisition, a controversial one Unity made for a while back. One that I think I made a video on a while back too, but the general gist of it is that they were apparently tied to a malware issue, which actually wasn't entirely their fault. From what I believe, from what I remember, Iron Source made like a open source installer, which a bunch of malware actors used and spread malware, and they actually had to cut off their entire connection. It's an interesting topic. I made a video. You should check it out if you're super interested there. Inside this letter, they basically wrote that on September 12th announcement, it hit us hard. Effective January 1st, 2024, Unity plans to introduce installation-dependent fees, a decision that jeopardizes small and large game developers alike, made without any industry consultation. To claim, as Unity has, that this new runtime fee will only impact 10% of the industry is not just misleading, it's patently false. It's not even just like game developers, like one person saying it. There's an entire collage of angry responses from game developers. So you've got one from Massive Monster who've made a response. Inner Slot, the guys behind Among Us, guys, made a response to this. Aggro Crab that we saw, a bunch of other developers have made solid responses to Unity. So clearly this isn't how they represent it, okay? So basically over here, they say the fee is on new installs only. Once you meet the 2 install and revenue thresholds, you only pay the runtime fee on new installs after January 1st, 2024. It's not perpetual. You only pay once for an install, not an ongoing perpetual license royalty like a revenue share model. So again, it's, I guess, not mentioning reinstalls, which they define it here. How we define and count installs. Assuming the install and revenue thresholds are met, we will only count net new installs on any device after January 1st, 2024. Developers are not responsible for paying a fee on reinstall charges. We are not going to charge a fee for reinstalls, which, by the way, can I just fucking say, a day ago, I read a response from one of your people in your own fucking forums, okay? Who, by the way, said if a user reinstalls, redownloads, changes their hardware, does that count as multiple installs? Yes, the creator will need to pay for all future installs. The reason is that Unity doesn't receive end player information, just aggregate data. So, what is it? Okay, are you backpedaling 100% on that? Or what's going on? Did you not know? Miscommunication? Am I just supposed to believe these assholes on blind faith? Hell no. They have they literally could not even consult with the industry. You think that I can trust them to give me accurate metrics and not fudge up numbers? Hell no. So of course, fraudulent install charges. We are not going to charge a fee for fraudulent installs. We will work directly with you on cases where fraud or botnets are suspected. Okay, so obviously they're going to fight against people that just bought freemium games, you know, make 1 million downloads, which, if you're wondering how somebody does that, it's called virtual machines, okay? Spin up 100 virtual machines, just make new ones like every 24 hours and download the game. As long as you change the hardware on that virtual machine, it's going to be picked up as a new machine anyways, a topic I'll be getting to in just a minute. Trials, partial play demos, and automation install charges. We're not going to count these towards your install count. Early access games are also not considered demos. Web and streaming games. We're not going to count web and streaming games towards your install count either. So this is actually an interesting point. They mentioned streaming games because this is the kind of shit that would piss Microsoft off insanely. For instance, Microsoft has xCloud, which, if you don't know what xCloud is, basically you can stream cloud game your Xbox titles with your phone or your actual Xbox system. It's actually pretty cool technology because it works in tandem with you being able to download your games and playing them locally. So the way that it works is if you have a Unity game on Game Pass, then if this clause wasn't mentioned, you could theoretically stream a game 100 times on xCloud and cause 100 installs. Because the way that cloud gaming works is like this. This gameplay of Cyberpunk 2077 that you're seeing is recorded underneath a virtual machine that I made with a graphics card passed through. This is kind of how Nvidia does it with their streaming service, how Microsoft does it. There are a bunch of hardware pieces sitting in a server somewhere. In this case, it's sitting in my computer, and all it does is it provisions a virtual machine with access to an install of the game, and you can then just basically launch these games and run it. But the way that a virtual machine works is as you launch the game, that virtual machine is spun up new every time. It's treated like a different computer. You know, in a way, if you change hardware components on your actual computer and you use Windows, Windows might take away your license because it detects itself on a new computer with a new graphics card or a new hard drive or a new processor. The definition of what is a new computer can vary between companies. And in that case, you know, could you imagine if tomorrow, I guess the best kind of comparison I could say is if you install Windows, right? You can download Windows and install it for free right now. And that whole process, right, you can use Windows, you'll have a watermark in the corner. Could you imagine installing Windows and after 30 days, they just say, hey, you can't open the file manager anymore, or you can't open Microsoft Edge or your internet browser. You got to pay a Microsoft license. Buddy, you used Windows for 30 days, you got to start paying for that premium license. Grandmothers would switch to Linux, okay? Overnight. All right, overnight that would happen. Because Microsoft and a lot of companies realize when you twist the knife like this, okay, it can really end badly, especially if there's competing products on the market. And in Unity's case, they're not the only middleware game engine out there, nor are they one of the best. So again, they've got charity-related installs. So if you have things like Humble Bundle or whatever, then that won't count towards you. What's also interesting is they have not mentioned things like free game drops on Epic Games Launcher, Steam, or whatever. Could you imagine being an indie developer and Epic puts your game for free on their store? Bro, you might just have to pay up the ass. The Epic royalties surely may not cover whatever Unity may end up charging you if your game gets downloaded up the ass. This is what I hate about this entire post when they talk about, oh, your questions and concerns. Some of the mentions that you have over here, like the reinstall charges, literally go against what one of your people have said a day ago. So can I trust Unity? Obviously not. Now, of course, there's been some more shady things that have come out, but one thing that I wanted to tell you in amongst all of it is because of this protest, there are big developers for big games like Cult of the Lamb, super popular indie games, who have said, hey, buy it now because we're deleting the game on January 1st. Literally a protest to what's been going on over here. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, one of the shady things that ended up kicking off was looking into the terms of service for Unity. So there were a few eagle-eyed individuals that were actually looking through Unity's TOS. One of the posts here was, Unity silently removed their GitHub repo to track license changes. They updated their license to remove the clause that lets you use the TOS from the version you shipped with, then insists games already shipped need to pay the new fees. So they actually ended up going down their GitHub repo, going through the old Wayback Machine to look for one specific clause. That clause is part of number 8 modifications in their terms of services. Unity may update these TOSs at any time, but basically you may elect to continue to use any current year version of Unity software and any LTS version according to the terms that apply just prior to the updated terms. The updated terms will then not apply to your use of those current year versions unless you update to the current version, the subsequent version, with the new TOS, which seems fair enough. But then, of course, when you look at their new TOS, that doesn't ever get mentioned anywhere. And inside this new entire TOS update, I'm not seeing that same clause anywhere. So if you're trying to allegedly hide this in such a shady fashion, how can I, again, ever trust anything this company says? You know, and this company is led by the same asshole, John Rosatello, who, by the way, one time back in 2022, called out mobile developers who don't use their monetization fucking idiots. Now, of course, he backtracked this like he should have, but again, can you ever trust this asshole ever? Can you trust somebody this evil? Last time I talked about him, I showed you how this guy thought that you might be incentivized to pay $1 to reload your gun in Battlefield. I'm turning the game off. In fact, I'm breaking the CD in half and pissing on it, all right? That's what's happening if your game ever did that to me, John. So no, I'm not going to be financially incentivized. And also, one thing that John should realize as a businessman is Battlefield wasn't the only game on the market. There was Halo, there was Call of Duty. Now, people are just spoiled for choice on what shooter they play. Inside here, they mentioned Unity announced that it will merge, this is back then, with the ad tech firm ironSource, and basically amongst this, the partnership will give developers who use the engine way more ways to monetize and rise above the noise, according to actual Unity's general manager. Now, whereas a lot of budding, idiotic, stupid game developers, according to John, just want to make good video games, John is only interested in the monetization aspect of the video games, okay? How long can we keep these people playing for an hour? And can we get them buying battle passes, watching ads, looking at stupid shit? John is the reason the video game crash is theorized, okay? Versus actual developers who create amazing experiences, lately like Baldur's Gate 3, Starfield, and whatnot, okay? John does not fucking care about video gaming, okay? John does not care. Now, one of the things that people brought up to me when I uploaded the video last time was, Muda, did you know that he dumped a fuck ton of his stock? Now, I looked into it, and yes, Unity's president, John Cipriano, dumped 2,000 shares, okay? Sold it off. Now, this is where I want to get a little bit technical. So if you look up a price company, you can actually look at what is known as the insider transaction list. And the way that this works is a lot of these company guys, like a lot of the people in the company, file what is known as an SEC Form 4, which actually looks a lot like this. So you can see this is John Rosatello's SEC form, where on the 9th of, the 6th of September here, 2023, he had sold 2,000 shares of his common stock. And that price point that he shared it was around 40, okay? So he sold like $40 worth of that Class D common stock. Now, $40 at 2,000 shares is $80,000 that he dumped off, so it's not like a crazy amount of money. I'm not saying that it's not. Obviously, $80,000 is a good chunk of cash, but for John Rosatello, it's basically like a couple bucks. So the reason he probably did this is because of paying some tax burden or whatnot, okay? It's actually quite common to see companies like sell and even buy some of their own shares from time to time. Now, what is kind of wild is not just John Rosatello in this case, ladies and gentlemen, it's actually Tomer Varsev, who is the president of growth at the company too. And as you can see in 2023, beyond Rosatello dumping his $80,000 worth of stock, this motherfucker's been selling at least 6 times in 2023, okay? Now, if the president of growth at the company is selling this hard, it looks like a bad signal, okay? And it's not 2,000 shares that he's selling off. He is selling off 37,500 shares, okay? Insane amounts. In fact, August 1st, he dumped 75,000 shares at a trading price of $45. Compared to John Rosatello, what does that look like? Let's do the math. 45 times 7,500. Oh, shit, son. $3.3 million. God damn. Now, why would somebody sell that much of their stock? Honestly, when it comes to being this rich, it's probably because people are setting up some major buy, a major tax burden. Hell, sometimes when a billionaire wants to buy a house, they'll just sell stock and pay for the house through the stocks that they sell. I'm not saying that's what happened over here, but to point out John Rosatello when you should be looking at the other heads of the companies too, is something to keep an eye on. Now, of course, the reason why SEC forms are filed is not because it's insider trading. It's just literally because these guys have to report to the government literally on the day or like close to the transaction that they are even doing this. However, it doesn't necessarily protect them from like getting investigated. If there is insider trading or these people are doing actions that are deliberately causing harm to the overall shareholder for their gain, that is highly fucking illegal, okay? And honestly, one should investigate if this is not just stupidity for the sake of self-enrichment. I'm not saying that that's the case over here. I'm just saying that there are governmental agencies that can come to a proper, solid, evidence-based conclusion because they have the ability to do so. Not my fat ass on the internet. Now, the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, Unity stock, if you look at their maximum, they pretty much kind of peaked a lot during the height of the pandemic. And since their highs during the pandemic, they've fallen down to this level. So maybe this is a move of desperation from the company to like up their shares. Maybe like this might be like the stupidest idea of like building your revenue that they had short-sightedly thought in their office, okay? But what I have learned today is even if they do backtrack on every single thing that they've done, this should never be trusted again. Unity as a company has dug their coffin, and if you're a game developer, if you are, you should never ever use software from a company that's decided to take a blatantly disgusting step like this. It might even be beneficial for you in the long term to even think of building your own engine instead of relying on these fucking scumbags. But ladies and gentlemen, this is what I wanted to update on. They have decided to finally nail their coffin. All right, back then, you know, a couple days ago, they made a big boo-boo, but they're sticking to their guns. And since they're sticking to their guns, they're going to be 6 feet under if, you know, this is what they're going to do to game developers out there. But ladies and gentlemen, that said, Unity is terrible. I wanted to update this video because there has been a few updates to it, obviously. And there's been a couple of, you know, interesting little rabbit holes to go down in this entire situation. That said, unless something major comes out, you know, unless the company fucking defaults, then I'm not going to care. But one thing I did want to mention here too is in amongst all of this, Unity unfortunately had faced a fair amount of death threats at their office and was shut down, okay? They shut down some of their offices, and I think they even shut down a town hall just because of this. And that's never okay. If you want to win in the world of optics, this is always bad, because all John Rosatello and the scumbags in Unity are going to say is gamers are taking this severe. Why are they issuing death threats? Death threats are never okay. At the end of the day, this is like game, engine issues, okay? This is a game engine. It's not the biggest deal in the world. What Unity is doing is threatening the livelihoods of a lot of publishers, a lot of independent game developers out there. But responding with death threats makes you look bad, okay? Simple as that. In the grand scheme, if somebody from outside is watching in on this situation and they're seeing death threats put against a company where they have to shut down offices out of their safety. That's just optically terrible. And it's not a normal, healthy thing to do. That is going way too far. What you can do, the best thing to do, if you want to actually shut down their offices legally, switch to Godot, open source, or use Unreal, or use any of their competitors, okay? Because the best way you can make John Rosatello cry, okay, is if you make a share so goddamn worthless, he can't even afford a box on Skid Row. I mean, that's unlikely to happen, but that's the best way to make an asshole like this cry. You hit a man you hit a man in the wallet, boy, you do a lot more damage than you expect. That said, though, ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mudahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Just like it if you dislike it, I am out.